Good morning. It's great to be here. See so many of you on a very wet Saturday morning. It's quite strange for me to be in front of an audience and not be talking about financial services. And you're probably all relieved on a Saturday morning to find that I will not be talking to you about financial services. Instead, I'm going to talk to you about another important part of my life that's been a constant in my life, as Julian said, which is theatre. And mainly acting, but also involvement in theatre. And it all started, actually, my parents had just moved the whole family out to New Zealand. We'd been to see some plays, some musicals. I remember falling in love with Salad Days, if any of you have seen that and remember that fairly old musical. But when I was 10 years old at primary school in New Zealand, we had this very exotic teacher, Mrs. Aldridge, Lynn Aldridge, or Lynn, as I came to know her as I got older. And she was very exotic for all sorts of reasons. We loved her. All the girls wanted to be like her. All the boys wanted to be in her class. And she was... And she was, one of the reasons she was so exotic was she was very active in the Christchurch in New Zealand acting scene. She was one of the big sort of Empresarios there. And we were lucky enough to have her at our school. And she decided to put on a major production, a really big thing for primary school, not the usual class productions, but to hire out a theatre, do big auditions, and she decided to do a production of Snow White. And I thought, I'm going to audition for this, and I'm going to get the part of Snow White. I auditioned. I didn't get the part of Snow White. Carmen, in the year ahead of me, who had black hair and was prettier than me, got the part of Snow White. But I still got to play the pretty part of the Wicked Queen. And you could say a forerunner to my career in financial regulation. So I got to play the part of the Wicked Queen, and I realised very early on into rehearsals that this was by far the much better part. I could still get to be a bit pretty. I could sort of have the fun of descending into the wicked witch hag type character, and I was the part that the audience kind of got quite excited about at various times. I loved the whole rehearsing, the dress rehearsing, the costumes, the makeup, and I didn't want it to end. And then the production started. And then I had an experience which for me was quite a defining experience that probably for many would have just put them off theatre for life. Which was, I was on stage, I think it was the second or third performance. It got, all the parents, you can imagine the theatre was kind of packed every night for this kind of production. And I got up, dressed up as the queen, the magic mirror on the wall. I went, magic mirror on the wall, who's the fairest one of all? And there was nothing. I'll do it again. Magic mirror on the wall, who's the fairest one of all? And again, nothing. Clearly, one of those things that those of us who are experienced in theatre, it was a technical problem. The theatre didn't answer, the mirror didn't answer. And I don't know what clicked on inside my head at the age of 10 years old, but I thought, I have just got to handle this and stay in character. And so I just stayed on stage, threw an almighty, very queenly, regal strop at the mirror until someone in the sound technicians department got it all working again. And then there was Snow White was the fairest of them all, and then I threw another strop, but this was according to the script. And I went off stage, and I could feel my whole heart beating. And I still remember this moment. The adrenaline was all running through my body. And Mrs. Aldridge, remember exotic Mrs. Aldridge, who everyone loved, came up and gave me a hug and whispered in my ear, only a real actress could do that. And I was hooked. I was absolutely hooked. I decided not to take it up as a profession. I toyed quite seriously with the idea of going to stage school. But I did loads of acting, and for more or less the next 20 years in New Zealand. And as you all know, and the reason I'm here today is that I'm not an actress in Gibraltar doing a bit of regulation on the side. I sort of took up a career as a regulator. So roll on, move to the UK, and actually it suddenly stopped. My career was taking off in the UK. I was having a family. I've got three children. And roll on to 2004, when I went to a little theatre in Bromley, literally a beautiful theatre, in 2004 to see a production there. It was a non-professional production. I hate the word amateur because I think some of the standard amateur theatre is incredibly high, and a lot of resting professionals come and do some, build up their theatre experience there. And I turned up to see this production. Wonderful theatre, old theatre, over 80 years old now. An old Victorian bakehouse had been turned into a theatre, and it was a full working theatre run by 1,000 members, 11 productions a year, each production running at least 8 to 9 performances. Massive amount of volunteer staff, artistic director. It was a full working theatre, except no one got paid. I fell in love with this theatre, and I went back and I talked to the kids' dad and the kids, and I said, I'm really missing this. I really want to get back into it. I haven't done anything for over 10 years. And we all agreed. I said, look, I tell you what, I'll audition for a play and I'll try and do one a year. So I did. I went there and I auditioned in May 2000, or just before, for a production in May 2005, for a play called The Killing of Sister George, which is 1960s, and it was quite controversial at the time. It's about power struggles within lesbian relationships. So this wasn't a play that my young kids could come and see. But I thoroughly enjoyed it, and it was kind of quite. I experienced, because I'd been off for 10 years, I just experienced things I hadn't experienced before. I found my hand shaking a bit as kind of nerves and age had come on, and I had to really kind of get back into where I was before. And then a year later, I did what's probably my favourite genre, which is farce. I love farce. I love the fast movement, the split timing. You have to time it so well to get the audience to laugh, and you're actually having to work the stage and the set really well. And we did a Ray Cooney play, Caught in the Net, and it's the classic farce. A taxi driver's got married to 2 women, and he's running a sort of separate life, day life, night life, and that was great fun. But then what I really want to kind of spend the last bit of my talk on is a really intense period of my time, when I look back on it now, between beginning of 2007 and 2009, I do not know how I got into 2009 still standing. I got cast for the part that Glenn Close made famous in Dangerous Liaisons, Les Liaisons Dangereuses, a wonderful part for anyone that's seriously interested in acting. And I realised that the theatre at the time was desperately in need of a bit of rejuvenation, leadership. The audience was coming down to about 60–70% fill, which was quite low for this theatre that had always enjoyed 90 to 100, really, really kind of packed audiences. That it was becoming quite old in terms of the people who were both attending the plays and auditioning for the plays and running the theatre. There was a lot of tension between those who looked after the infrastructure of the theatre and those that did the acting, a kind of classic lovies, and those that do it split. And so after this play, I got asked if I would use my more professional skills to come in and become chair of the theatre. And I accepted that invitation and actually embarked on what felt to me like an extension of my day job, which was significant rejuvenation, building up work with the local council to really kind of work out how the theatre could work with their local plans for the area in Bromley. I brought in a new artistic director. We made sure that auditions were properly opened up to new and younger members. And I was really, that was very intense. Bear in mind, I was doing a really full-time day job as well. Really intense period for the remainder of 2007. At the same time in 2007, the only way I could manage childcare and doing all this work with the theatre was to plonk my kids in the plays that were going on. And so Ben, who's now 17, and he did say to me last night that if I mentioned it, he would kill me. He's going to kill me. He got cast. They asked if I could stage. We had a problem with the stage manager for the April production, The Duchess of Malfi, a Jacobean drama where it's really awful. Everyone dies, and it's very bloodthirsty. And frankly, the only person that survives was the part that my son played at the end of it. And then my daughter, I was kind of at the theatre quite a lot in the evenings in June, just doing various stuff. And there was a production of Once a Catholic, and I was having problems with what Emily was doing in the evening at that time, so I plonked her in that as well. And I think at various times I had the kids in the theatre eating sandwiches, eating their packed tea. And at this point, I was beginning to realise what was one of the wonderful things that I loved about theatre. And what I was finding happening was it was becoming what I call my third place. I was making friends, a whole different group of friends. Because unlike in New Zealand, where I'd kind of gone from theatre to theatre, I was constantly at this theatre. And the thing I loved about it was that it's a hobby that people can do even if they haven't got very much money. One of my closest friends is a woman who's about to turn 80 who ran the bar at this theatre, and I really loved that. I really loved that about the theatre. But then going into 2008, I decided I really needed to get back doing acting again after 6 months kind of running the theatre. And then I went into a series of, I was in a play every 2 months, and it did feel a little bit crazy. In January 2008, I was in Noises Off, wonderful play. For any of you that have seen it, you will it's meant to be one of the funniest farces. If you haven't seen it, you must go and see a production of it. 2 months later, I was in Stepping Out, that we put in the part that Amanda Holden is now doing in the West End. And the really great thing about that was that I had to learn to tap dance. And I still owe my tap shoes. I don't think I could tap dance right now, hence I haven't got them on if you paid me. I had been intending to take a bit of a break because I was in the July production, but they needed a step-in for the May production of Come Back to the Five and Dime, Jimmy Dean. I had about 5 weeks' notice to do this. And I stepped in a bit reluctantly, actually, because I could see this was going to be quite a technically difficult part to do. But whenever I say to people in Gibraltar, have you heard of this play? A lot of people look at me quite blankly. It was quite famous when it came out at the time. The challenge of the part, I played a part called Joanne. I played the part of a man who had had a sex change to become a woman, and also I had to do a Southern American accent. So it was really hard, and the kids, they did a tape on kind of how to learn a Southern American accent, and I had it playing in the car all day, and I'm not going to do it now. I have to have a gin or two, but some of the staff at the commission, I've startled them sometimes by coming back into it. That was a huge challenge, actually, because I had to do it in a way that didn't look like I was overdoing the part. It couldn't look like a stereotype. So I had to think very hard about the mannerisms in that, the way you walk, the way you hold yourself. I like to think I'm quite a feminine person, and so because I'm a woman, and so I had to sort of work quite hard at it. Then I went back to farce again and did See How They Run. And it was great fun, really good part. The biggest challenge in that part was, as someone said to me just before I accepted the part, the biggest challenge for you, Samantha, is just that you are on stage all the time, and it's over 2 hours, and it's a lot of lines to learn, and it was a lot of lines to learn, but great fun. Then a group of us from the theatre went off to Spain in the last 2 weeks of October there's a expat theatre in Fuengirola, and we did Nicholas Nickleby Part 1. And that was actually my first experience of having a concentrated period of time, 2 weeks, where the only thing I was doing was acting. I wasn't really having to sort of manage childcare, although the kids were in it, of course, because I had to find something for them to do, and for the half-term holidays. But I didn't have my day job, and that was great fun. And then finally, in February 2009, I was in a play called Black Widow, where I played the main protagonist in the title, who killed her husband, and you spend the whole play working out actually she was the person that killed her husband in order to run off with someone else. Then it all came to an end in 2009, because I was recruited to actually a pretty significant role in the Solicitors Regulation Authority in Birmingham. I felt quite tired then, but I had a real choice to make. This was a very big role for me. I was delighted to be offered the job. But I had to think quite hard, because it took me the role of the job, not just being out of London, but when you do a job like mine here in Gibraltar, and certainly the job I took on then, there is a point where it just becomes too difficult. However, I came to as you know, I came to Gibraltar, and the way things work here is that it is actually possible to do the odd bit of acting. I was in the panto, barely recognisable, I like to think. For those of you that saw it, I was the one in the purple wig and the Edna Everage glasses. And because Daniel, who's directed both the play I'm in this year and the play I was in last year, it's just a two-hander, he can fit rehearsals around me. And so we tend to rehearse on Sunday morning when my kids, who are now older, are in bed. But it's been, and I am delighted to be here in Gibraltar, and I'm delighted to be able to do what is a very big job and still keep my hand in with a hobby that I have loved all through my life and intend to do for the rest of my life. Thank you very much. Thank you.